There we are. Hi, Dennis.
Hi, Sabrina.
Nice that you could make time for this conversation today. So before we get started, please just talk a little about yourself and introduce yourself for our audience.
Yeah, really excited as well. I think it's a really cool opportunity to talk, to exchange, always learning. And yeah, about myself, I'm Dennis, as you said. And yeah, I'm a father of two children, two boys, 5 and 7 years old, obviously taking a big part of my center.
Yes, of course.
But obviously, I do have a professional role as well. So I'm currently in the role of a group lead inside a young tech company, which is called Sono Motors. And yeah, group lead role is more or less leading a business unit, if you relate to traditional terms. And
Yes.
I'm not doing this alone. I do have, let's say, co-leads. We are a little bit differently organized, but I'm pretty sure along this hour we're going to talk about this a little bit more.
Yes.
Or we can talk about this a little bit more. And yeah, so it's a tech company, as I said. We would like to bring solar on every vehicle. So basically, making use of the energy of the sun to move our vehicles. It's a electric vehicle company, and but also beside that, we have other business units that are actually exploring the potentials of using solar power for transportation in general, or making use of vehicles and transport even more efficient by sharing. So quite exciting company.
Yeah, so what I hear you say is that it's all about this idea of environmental sustainability or contributing towards that whole thing of environmental sustainability. So I was just wondering how one starts, because that's a very new field. There's, not like an established brand yet that has really brought solar power to vehicles in that sense. So where do you start when you have that vision that you want to contribute towards environmental sustainability, and then making that a real thing, actually, like something you can touch and see? What's the process there?
What's the process? I do think along the way we are, let's say, broader picture, humankind is evolving heavily, and at one point profit-driven purposes are basically, as we can see it right now, not the holy grail of our humankind, I would say. So I do think the main shift has been coming from humankind itself, switching from realizing to do something, to care about our environment, to care about the things or the planet we're living on. And I'm really glad that our founders have started with this journey, and pretty remarkable journey, right? So two young people sitting together and thinking, what can we change about it? What can we do? And it was clear that one path is to save CO2, so carbon emissions. And I think that started the whole journey of generating power from the sun, which is actually free, obviously, and making use of it where it needs to be used, actually on our vehicles. And they started the journey actually 10 years ago, so it's quite a long and far way they have gone. And we are not there yet with the product, but we will be second half of next year.
Awesome.
Yes, it's awesome, and I'm part of this journey since roughly 3.5 years.
Mm.
So I took the shortcut, let's say, getting inspired by them, because I do have an OEM background, so car manufacturing background. But it was clear to me at one point, latest at the point when I actually became a father,
Mm-hmm.
getting more conscious about what do I want to leave the next generations with in terms of our planet.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to imagine, like, you have this plan in your head of what you want to achieve, and then how does it look like to build such a thing then? Do you just try out, like, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this whole idea, because I'm very passionate about this whole idea of making a dream a real thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of try and error.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, in our case, it's a lot of funding required,
Mm-hmm.
because bringing a vehicle onto the streets is very capital expensive, capital heavy. So there is quite a lot of capital needed to actually get to the point to bring a car onto the street. So I do think, as always, little steps, proving certain things. So by producing prototypes, and our founders have started with that, as I said. So the idea was 10 years ago, first prototype ish 7 years ago, let's say, or 8 years ago, and then constantly with new funding and with convincing investors of the idea, moving forward the idea, and developing the technology with more competences on board. So if I can relate to it a little bit, when I started, we were around about 80 people in that company. Now, as I speak, I think we are at around 400 people, and in our business unit, we are now more than 220 people working exactly on that vision. So you can imagine, with 200 people and the competences. So you need to add competences and experts in certain fields to move on. But it all depends on funding, making sure that you show progress, that you earn your feasibility and viability to actually get there.
Yeah, to me it sounds like it's a bit of a balance act sometimes between this new way of thinking, this vision that you follow, which is like a very modern and very clear way towards a change in the world, but then having to convince people who are maybe more in the traditional business world, like, hey, invest in this idea. So is there ever sort of a friction between those two sides of the story?
Absolutely. I mean, it's with every tech. You need to prove it somehow that it's actually a gain, right? That it is an advantage. So we have certain USPs, so unique selling propositions. One is the solar technology we are developing and actually have patents on. And the other thing is, for example, bidirectional charging, or discharging and charging from the vehicle. Because adding solar to something means that you at some point might have enough energy to share. So
awesome.
At that point, it was clear that the car needs to give away energy as well at certain points if you don't need to use it. And so on the one hand, by using the vehicle, so sharing the vehicle, but on the other hand, also sharing the energy itself. So we can use our car as an energy storage for other electric vehicles. So our vision is to have our car being able to share energy um, to other vehicles, other devices, and actually also grid. So home users can actually, hopefully, with our wall box, save energy, or let's say store energy, and give it to the house once it's needed. So when the sun is not shining, so it's a huge battery those cars are at the moment carrying. So it's vital for us to make use of it as much as possible.
Wow, that sounds really awesome.
Yeah.
So is it like whenever that friction occurs, you remind people of that bigger picture?
Yes. Absolutely. The bigger picture of treating vehicles. So let's say our flagship product, the Xeon, the vehicle itself, making sure that it's understood what impact it can have. So actually, by sharing it, maximizing the use of a vehicle, which on average, let's say in Germany, a car is used, 5%, and the other 95% is actually the car is standing around, whether you are at work or at home. It's a resource not used, and that's one thing. And the other thing is making it as independently as possible. So if we look at the carbon dioxide topic, it is vital for us to find solutions, and currently electric vehicles can be a solution. So it is up to us making it work, making it independent, range independent as much as possible, and that is what we're trying to do. Of course, it's not use case for everyone. If you are a high frequently using your car and driving a lot and driving long distance, our product might be not the right one, but it serves quite a huge amount of people that are commuting every day, round about 15 to 20 kilometers, where the energy stored by the sun on good days is completely covered for this journey. So it's again the little steps that we would like to promote and get to the mindset. And I think the friction is not only with the product, right? So we as a young company are also organizationally. I would always say it's our USP organizational wise, right? So we are actually trying to achieve a huge milestone with that product by doing it differently as well. So how we want to get there? We are not a traditionally formed organization, so we are, and we can talk about that as well a little bit. Because on the one hand, we are talking about sustainability in terms of product, but of course, we are also talking about sustainability for the human themselves. So our organization also wants to take care about that, want to take responsibility for that.
Yeah. And actually, as you were talking, that topic was already coming to my mind. Thinking like, okay, if you have such a big vision for contributing to a change generally on the planet, then probably you also have a vision about leadership and how, your teams should be working. So how is it different from the traditional setup? Can you explain a little more?
It's, as we are human, it's complex.
Yes.
In general, if you have heard about these topics, you definitely come across spiral dynamics. You definitely come across Frederic Laloux's work with reinventing organizations, and this is the path we actually are following within individual interpretation. So
Yes.
as you can imagine, there are certain forms that you can do, certain mid steps you can take. You will always find yourself trying to reach a concept and trying to learn on the way. So to make it really simple or simplify it, we want to be an organization that is not seen as a machine. It is an organic life form, which is a huge difference to what traditionally, in terms of performance-driven companies or organizations are looking for. And it's in the terminology as well, right? So you always talk in those organizations, you always talk, hey, how can we make this clock running faster, or how can you dial the machine in so it's putting out more performance and all of that. It's like, it's getting common use in our language. And in our case, we are trying to move away from that language. We're moving away from seeing us as machines. And if you talk about organization, you need to talk about the members of the organization. And obviously, we are not machines. And that is one major difference. And the other difference is we want to be self-organized and self-responsible. So we are taking the steps towards making every single employee reaching for that self-responsibility thinking and self-organization, as if their part of the organization is a organic organization in itself. Only this way, seeing it as a network instead of a line hierarchy organization, is actually bringing the benefit.
And how does that translate into the recruiting process, or even if you already have people in your organization, but they have been wired a certain way in their brain, of course, from maybe previous jobs, or what they are used to from their from the society, community they grew up in, and so on. So how does that translate into interacting with those members of your organic network, so to speak?
That's a really, really good point, because, as I said, we are not machines, we are humans. And putting it in your words, we have our social background, we have our wiring in our heads, right?
Yes.
And I think you as a coach can talk quite a lot about it when speaking with your customers. And I think you call it unshackling, right?
I call that.
So getting rid of these predefined wired things in your head. I think we as an organization are trying to actually get to this point. Obviously, it's not easy, because if you are already socialized in a certain way, there needs to be a certain openness to actually explore your own roots, explore your own maturity. If we're coming back to spiral dynamics. And that is not common for in our work life, let's say, right? Normally, as Frederick Laloux is saying it, you go into the work, you put on your mask, and this is and the complete you is someone else outside of work, or and this is what we want to get rid of. But we, again, taking small steps with it, because it's a huge change, a huge mindset change. The good thing about it is there is a certain solid base, because if you look at our company, if you look at our website, if you look at the recruiting website, it is clearly saying where we want to get to, why we are doing things, what is our purpose, and it's actually not making profit. It is basically doing good for the environment, having solutions to help the environment and get into a sustainable living, and having sustainable products out there.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that already if someone would look for a job, it would be pretty clear that you need to have a certain mindset when when you consider sending your application.
Yes.
But you see, as humans, we often believe that we are open-minded and that, we are ready for something. So what is your take in terms of how the organization is structured then on when it gets hard for someone as a member of that network? How do you work around that, or what are your approaches?
Yeah. A really good question, because obviously you can only feel it when you're in it.
Yeah.
It's you can find things really, really, really nice. And if we talk about self-responsibility, we are talking also about decision taking. And of course, it sounds all nice. And for people that are actually, uh, let's say it this way, we have people in our society that can deal with it, and some
Mm-hmm.
don't, simply because of maturity. And I don't want to say that it's wrong,
Mm-hmm.
um, because that makes diversity, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but in our case, what we are trying is to help as much as possible. If you are in a certain stage of maturity and you see someone struggling, like you do, you try to help. You try to go into that level and try to push up. And I think that's also a big part, to your other question in terms of leadership, or indicating into it. Of course, our leadership is the key point to actually do so,
Mm-hmm.
to evolve into that sort of organization. Um, and that means also leadership within Sono Motors needs to have a certain maturity, because again, looking at spiral dynamics, or Frederick Laloux and Ken Wilber, um, you always need to have a certain maturity to help others to pick up their maturity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, doesn't work if you are at the same level.
Yeah, and that feeds into another very interesting point, because what I've seen, when you read and check around, even on social medias these days, there's a lot of talk about agile concepts in management and in business, and making things less structured and more open and so on. But there's also a lot of talk about the fact that leadership doesn't necessarily translate that into the entirety of a company. Maybe some leaders might have that level of maturity you are referring to, but it doesn't trickle down to the rest of the structure of the organization, or is not felt by the employees. I think that's a topic that often pops up around those like new topics in terms of how to manage businesses or organizations. So is there a best practice or something that you have found really works better in terms of making sure that it trickles down?
It's hard for me to talk about best practice.
Mm,
We always have been an organization reflecting ourselves as in the process. So,
mm,
um, and I do think it's a good thing that we not say that we have found the way of doing it right, or
yeah.
doing it best practice, because it's so individual, and it's so an organization like this is so, how do you say, it depends. It simply depends on so many things. What maturity are your leaders? What maturity are your employees? How do you generate structures providing this growth, right? If we talk about maturity and development, we're talking about growth of every single person within the organization. I do think this is something we don't have a best practice where you can then say, okay, I'll take that and go. What we
Mm.
can do is always reflect, and that is, I do think this is something that the agile mindset is bringing us. So I know it's really buzzword, and it's
Mm.
always like taken as a um, not excuse, but at least as a framework that actually can improve something. And sometimes you don't even know what you want to improve. But
Mm.
uh, to us, it's the best management. Let's say if we call it this way, the best management style that actually contributes to the concept we want to achieve.
Mm.
Meaning, people over process,
Mm.
and meaning that constant review, reflecting, changing, changing the environment um, in the blink of an eye. That is only suitable or manageable with an agile mindset. Um, and I think that is something that I can say, if you want to,
Mhm.
if you want to get back to the best practice, it is doing and reflecting. And
Mm.
it's as simple as that, and do it um, as it suits in your time frame. So our whole organization, or our business unit, is actually trimmed, let's say, to 2 weeks sprints, and every 2 weeks we want to reflect ourselves. What is running good? What is running bad?
Mm.
Um, what what impeded us to achieve what we wanted to achieve in that 2 weeks time frame? So by doing so, it is irrelevant of the best practice in terms of what you need to do. It's always kind of for every team differently. For
Mm.
every organizational element, it's differently. That
That's
is,
very powerful.
yeah,
So, yeah, because I was just thinking, what you said about looking at an organization as an organic network of humans, or,
yeah,
who are all part, that actually reflects the fundamental reality of life. Life is always just life expanding, growing, changing. Nothing ever remains the same. Like in traditional business, it's like, this is the process, you follow it.
yes,
It's 50 years old,
yes,
but still follow it, right? In the extreme case. But what you just described is very much aligned with what life is anyway,
yeah,
which is constant change. And the fact that although humans are all fundamentally the same, we are also very different in where we are, what we need, and so on. So that, to me, it makes a lot of sense listening to you there.
yeah, absolutely. And please don't feel like I'm saying it's wrong to be in a stage where we are, because actually
Mm.
the stage was necessary to achieve, to go the next stage. So
Yes.
if we look at our evolution, let's say, as a
Mhm.
humankind, um, it is inevitable to go through these stages, and and I think I all I want to, or all we want to do, is explore the possibilities to get to the next stage, to get to this, um, let's say, productivity, which is not bound to this performance driven society or organizations,
Mm.
because that has a limit. And I think we are at this limit, and it brought us so many good things, right?
Mm.
I mean, we are living in Germany. We are more or less, yeah, very, um, we are in a good stage living in Germany, um, having everything what we want. Actually,
Mm.
we have clean water. We have all the accessibilities that still in this world people are need to fight, or need to put on really big struggles to get.
Mm.
So we need to review or reflect on this and say, look, it brought us here. We need to make it accessible. We need to make sure that everyone on this planet is going into that, or can have this accessibility to the advantages we have. That's the one thing. And on the other thing, we need to explore how to get there and how to make, because there are also downsides of what we are doing right now. And it is harming our environment, as it is harming the humans actually as well. If you think of a machine, or human is a machine in an organization, it is destroying people. It is burning out people. And these are the downside of it. So all we need to do is to see for solutions that are actually pushing these things away while still being productive.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean taking away, because I think that's sometimes the misconception, right? When we try to do like new things in a new way or change organizational structures, there's that fear like, but if we don't do it this way, the way we have always done it, things might collapse.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be that way. It can be an organic process where change just happens until it's healthy, so to speak, again.
Yeah, this is coming back to sustainability, right? It can be sustainable growth. It can be sustainable for every single human on this planet, if we explore and if we go that next steps, because it doesn't end at one point. We will always evolve, and we will always get to the next steps. It's just reflect and acknowledge, getting the awareness that how we are treating our planet right now is not the right way, because we're actually extincting ourselves.
Yeah. And what is then your take on the critical voices around, e-mobility, and how, let's say, some of the battery contents are one at the moment, and that it further harms our planet in certain ways if some of the materials are extracted in a certain way?
It is, of course, we can always find negatives about development, and there are examples of where we have misled ourselves in technology. Really simple thing is, for example, the compact disc, right? So we switch from our let's say big vinyl records to cassettes. I don't know if it's in English, cassettes, but
the tapes, yeah.
Tapes,
Yeah,
exactly, tapes. Tapes, and then switch to compact disc. And there was this certain point in time where a company, Sony, did go for mini discs, because they believed that this is the right direction. And but it didn't turn out this way. And this is where we need to be aware of. Does it make sense to do all of that? Currently, there is no other solution to me, and I'm really convinced about this. There's no other solution to cut our own waste to than going to electric vehicles, because the efficiency is so much higher. Of course, we still have the problem of energy storage. This is where basically the solar thing comes in as well, making sure, making use of the storage, making use of the energy. And at least that is our vision to contribute to that next steps, making use of the energy that is around us, and take the technologies that we currently have. Only that can bring progress, even if it's a dead end. Of course, would be sad for me because I believe in it. But for the whole humankind, it would not be sad, because there will be dead ends always. Technologies.
Yeah, and that means again further growth, because even if we figure out this is a dead end, then we know we have to go another way.
Same as in life, right? As you
Yeah.
mentioned it, sometimes you are misleading. Sometimes you do mistakes, but that's the only way to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there a way you would say to then avoid that, something like a new technology, let's say this e-mobility turns into another dangerous thing, so to speak, for the planet?
Yes, there is a way to avoid, and it's constant awareness about the things that you do and challenge. So we are taking all of these challenges, right? We do want to have that exchange with the community. We want to have exchange with critics, because that is also part of the journey and the growth. I think that is the key topic in terms of avoidance of going into the wrong direction, being open to critics, and um, bringing it in. And I think if we're looking at the concept that we want to achieve as an organization, I mean, that in terms of spiral dynamics, it's teal, so the color teal. But there are, if you're looking at the majority of organizations, performance-driven organizations, this is actually orange, right? There are certain other steps that are mandatory to go towards a teal organization, which is, for example, data-driven, a data-driven organization. As long as you get towards these stages and are aware of these stages, you can always go back and say, look, this is now working better. And in our case, I would always hold ourselves accountable for checking, is the data showing the right things? So is it actually worth it putting solar on a car? And currently our data, so throughout the period that our founders have started this journey, data was always showing that it's first of all feasible, and the second one, we are gaining something from it, even though it is not a huge thing. It is a little bit, or it is as much as it can have an impact. And that is what I'm saying with the structure of our vehicle. Our vehicle is a city vehicle or a short commuter vehicle, not the fastest, not the massively biggest, but it is a family vehicle, affordable, so people can actually buy it, enabling this change. And that is the key here. So yeah.
Yeah, that I was just thinking, if anyone is sitting there listening to our conversation and saying like, yeah, I really want to run my business differently. I think there were some really empowering things that you said. Like, number one, this whole idea of an organization being an organic network, as we said earlier. But now what you also added to that, like your process of constant reflection and validating with data, like am I just running towards something without ever checking?
Yeah.
Or am I actually stopping to check and taking the time to understand, okay, what has happened here? Is it progress? Is it not? What do I want to change? Like at every step, I do that validation. And I think that's very powerful. Of course, it slows down the rat race, a pace that many companies have, but for a very big gain, which is more awareness.
Yeah.
And you can constantly sort of course correct wherever you have to.
Yeah. And it actually is being brave enough to acknowledge the science and acknowledge the data. Of course, you need to be brave enough as well to start a startup, going for a big shot, let's say, and believe in the things that you want to change. But you need to also be brave enough to say, okay, this has not been the right way. We need to change again.
Yeah, it does take a lot of bravery, because it also means that you might want to admit to, oh, here I really miscalculated, or here I didn't make the right decision, or the best possible decision in that scenario. Right or wrong is anyway relative, but
absolutely.
So what would you say in terms of a feedback? How do I phrase this? Like a feedback loop within a team. What is the, again, best practices relative, but what is what is working for you in that setup? Like, how do you ensure good feedback loops are established?
Yeah. I think that first of all, you need to lay the foundations of a secure environment, because if you don't have a secure environment where people can actually speak up, obviously every feedback will be tainted, let's say, or even a bad feedback, because you would rely on it to be true, or to be to be valuable, and then you make your decisions, or you change yourself as well because of that feedback. So yes, so secure environment, making sure that that people trust each other, and to actually not go not go into the direction of, I'm saying this because I want to say this because it's for my own good. It should be always for the good of the purpose of the team, purpose of the company. And if we're talking about that secure environment and open feedback culture in general, cadence, obviously you can always bring it into the rituals that you have. So if we are structured in sprints, as I said, we do have that agile concept. We live it somehow a little bit differently, and we live and learn, and it's a journey since 2.5 years. And if I look at it, we are definitely not there yet. But what I can at least see is that people want to push the purpose of our business unit, and they want to push the purpose of our company. And if you make yourself free of ego, right?
Yes.
Then you can see feedback, true feedback, with different eyes, and want to make things better for at the end for the planet. And I think these are the key topics: secure environment, trust, generate an environment of trust, and try to reflect as much as possible. Put it into rituals, do retrospectives, and don't look into the retrospectives as technical or technical things. So if you wanted to solve a problem on, I don't know, let's get really technical, like a wheel did not attach to a car. You can do retrospectives about that, but what I mean is looking at your human behaviors and your human interactions, making that team perform better. By doing exactly that, looking at the human interactions. Where do you have human frictions, process frictions? That I do think that is crucial to get more out of it.
To make sure that the wheel will be attached to the vehicle at the end of the day. Yeah, that makes total sense. What it also means is that fundamentally, I'm just thinking as I was listening to you. I thought like it takes out all the ideas of competition in a business environment.
Absolutely.
If you want to achieve that, you have to get absolutely rid of that, because you can't bring your ego, which creates a competitive environment, to your work.
Yes.
And that's so different from how most businesses actually run, even in their rewarding structures and how they decide about promotions and salaries, how they communicate to their people.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
does that then mean that within your teams, you really just always talk about the purpose? Like, why are we here together as a unit? Or how do you go about that?
Yes. It needs always constant reminders on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think we are still, I mean, we are already big, but we are still in a size where we can emphasize on, hey, remember that person A or person B is here because of the exact same thing.
Mm.
And that brings us always back to yes, you're right. It's exactly the same thing. And yes, you're right. Maybe he's not saying it, or she is not saying it because of her own advantage in that sense.
Mm.
It's for the advantage of bringing, for example, in our business unit, bringing the car on the street.
Yeah.
And having an impact. So yeah, and what you're saying is absolutely right. It's oh. Yeah, it's absolutely right. We are trying to leave as much as possible of our egos aside, but that also is really part of the personal growth. And if you're coming into our business, it is different, and it is sometimes even hard to let go of all of this. And if you look from the outside, of course, we have critics saying, hey, you should worry about bringing the car on the street and
Yeah.
not worry about the emotional status of your employees. Let it going, do it. But on the other hand, people are really recognizing us as a company that is open, transparent. So, for example, we are publishing our development status every 2 weeks with all the ups and downs we are going through. And that makes us that makes our organization as a unique selling proposition. So the company itself and how we run it is a unique selling proposition, because at least in my opinion and in my belief, right, we're not going
Of
out there
course.
and saying, hey, this is our I just do believe that this is the big advantage we have. We make people living with us and seeing with us, going through with us our struggles, right? We had our community funding campaign where we really were open and saying, look, it didn't work out with our funding. So we don't have any other choice to ask you to help us and take you through us with our journey. And I do think this is so unique for our company. So if I have an advice, be transparent. And this brings us back to the thing that you said as well. If you don't bring politics within to the company, it means it's more reflecting life. It's more reflecting the organic structures of life and the world how it is. It's not always shiny and fantastic. We are going through dips. We are going through struggles, and I do think within the performance driven organization and profit driven organizations, there's always this topic of how do I present myself towards the outside.
Yes,
Making
absolutely.
most of showing that I'm capable and I'm at my highest game and I don't have any struggles. But this is exactly the same in our or personal life. So me myself as a father, obviously I struggle every day, and everyone can relate. And if we get open to these topics on a personal level, it helps us. And I believe it helps us on an organizational level as well. And that brings performance, that brings productivity that we actually have not seen with that stage of where we are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can just, I relate so much to this topic because even in my own business, I learned that like vulnerability is basically strength. Because if we don't have to use energy to present ourselves as something else, something flashy and shiny that has figured it all out, outside there, we can use that energy to focus on the essential actions. We let go of the ego, we start focusing on the essential actions. And actually, the level of productivity that I achieved once I figured that out was, I don't know, so much higher. I can't even put a number to it. Like in 20 minutes, I could do what sometimes in a traditional setting, I would probably need several hours for.
Yeah.
Because there's such a laser focusing energy on just that essential topic. So absolutely agree on what you just shared.
Yeah. And creating that environment, I think this should be our ultimate goal, and this is what I'm trying to achieve every day, to personally, for me to get into that stage, and also making sure that we have the environment within the team to get to these stages, getting into this laser focus, acknowledging that we are humans, that it can be 2 days, 3 days of really not being productive. But on the other hand, having 2 days that are weighing all of this off.
Yeah.
At the end, you will have even more. And forcing towards yourself, forcing it through.
Yeah. So does that mean also that you, as as Dennis, believe in letting go of the 8 to 5 traditional settings and structures at work?
Yes. You need to be very careful because obviously, as I said several times, we are humans and we have different dedications, different passions, and so on and so forth. And I do think, yes, it is a perfect match if the dedication, the passion is fitting your actually work that you are doing. In my case, it is this way, but you cannot always say that it is for other people's within your team as well exactly the same. So you cannot relate. So you need to be really, really careful, and I think develop people to the stage of acknowledgement of their desires and aspirations, and as open as they want to get. I'm trying to lead the team to explore on this path of aspiration. There are cool concepts out there like Ikigai and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you can actually, as a leader, explore yourself, but also get your team into these concepts and really reflect. Try to get them reflect on that path. But I can say that for me, I have the dedication to work really. 9 to 5 is not the right not the right thing for me. And also we need to create structures where we can actually work asynchronously. Me being a family father, it's not always, I cannot always get to these times of 9 to 5, and not nowhere near touching the fact that we have different biorhythms in us.
Yeah.
So I'm a strong believer in if you are as productive as can be in a certain time, and may it be 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., do it. Do it and structure your day towards it. Obviously, it's really hard in our working environment, not really accounting for that. But yeah. Um, I have my, I do have my, let's say, most productive hours. Um, Sometimes it leads to more than 8 hours of work, obviously, but that's the dedication then I bring into it, focusing on getting this car on the street.
Yeah. What you said really was very interesting to me about helping your team members to explore their aspirations and their desires, because I think when people understand why they do certain work, that's when they can really find that laser focus or the energy to be laser focused. If they are sort of, oh, this is just a job, and not clear about, for what am I actually doing that? Is it just the money? Then that's fine, but acknowledge that, because maybe you want to buy something or you want to do certain things, or is it something else that really drives me? I think many people are not 100% clear on that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the potential that which lies into it, right?
Yeah.
So the hidden potentials of the things you could actually achieve if you kind of could explore your aspirations and also explore in terms of skills and talents, and if they are different to what you are doing in your job right now, then try to explore it and change. Yeah.
Yes.
We had Sono Motors. We are then trying to acknowledge and see what in our boundaries we can do. But obviously, if there's something that is not within our fields and we cannot, then I hate saying this, because obviously, if we have so many great people and we don't want to lose people, but on the other hand, it's for the benefit of all of us. If people can strive for their aspirations.
I think actually it is true strength of a leader or even a team member to say, like, hey, this is not aligned. That is truly living everything that we have just discussed. Because if we shy away from telling the truth on that fundamental point, where it's like, are we aligned with our vision, our purpose, and so on, or not, then it's just so painful for everyone involved. And I think many people are stuck in such a situation. So I would say, like, whoever it is, never hate yourself for having to say that as a leader, like, hey, this is not working, or even as a team member. It is the biggest act of liberation anyone can do to change and find something where there's actually alignment.
Yeah. You need to be careful about maturity, right? So it is obviously it's really mandatory to say to give the frame according to maturity, personal and organizational, right?
Yeah.
So if you, for example, if you have a team that is really coming from that background of stringent hierarchy and is really used to it, 10th of years, right? Then obviously it doesn't make sense to come around and say, look at your emotional aspirations and
Maybe not as a first step, right?
Exactly. So it's again, having a look on what the maturity is really so important. To identify this is also a skill or a talent in itself. Saying, oh, okay, I leave that team running in that sort of sense, and we're just going to try to lift it up bit by bit in terms of maturity. And how long that takes is depending on the team. And again, this can take years, but at the end, it's the awareness of it that we should have as leaders.
Yeah. Great insights. I think this is a perfect ending to our very insightful conversation.
Great.
So thank you so much, Denis, for sharing all your thoughts, and giving us a glimpse of what it really means to work in an organization that runs differently.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk about these things, because from our daily work. It's you need to have dedicated headspace to actually go into these views, and I always appreciate doing that.